The last 5 years were the most challenging period of my life. The back pain took away a lot of things that gave me joy and satisfaction. I've always liked all kinds of movement: walking, running, doing handstands, calisthenics, lifting weights, playing sports, and so on. However, my back pain forced me to limit my physical activity, which in turn negatively impacted my psychological state. Working out helped prevent my mind from getting overactive and kept me balanced.
Lift heavy stone. Make sad head voice quiet.
Strategy has been working until that point. However, I found myself in a situation where any attempt of being active would later result in pain, throwing that whole reward structure out of whack. I have spent a good part of the last 5 years trying to figure this situation out, and in this video I would like to share some insights from this humbling experience. For those of you who are fortunate to be unfamiliar with the concept of chronic back pain, let me explain it quickly. To me, the simplest form of pain is when you, for example, bump your toe on something. It comes fast and is overwhelming, but goes away pretty quickly. A different type of pain is when you actually damage a piece of tissue, be it muscle, connective tissue, or whatever else. In that case, you're going to feel pain every time you put enough pressure on that tissue, because it is a signal from your body discouraging you from doing it again. You can hurt your back this way, and it's going to give you that acute sensation of pain in certain positions, usually when bending the spine. However, this is not the kind of pain I was experiencing. It's different to the point where I'm not even sure calling it a pain does it justice. It's more like a feeling of discomfort that silently creeps up on you and keeps growing as you continue doing whatever triggered it in the first place, be it walking, standing, or even sitting down. In the beginning, you don't even notice it, but as it grows, you start experiencing some discomfort or stiffness in the general lower back area. At this stage, while noticeable, you don't feel like it's affecting you at all and is easy to ignore. And ignore it you will often because you want to finish the walk you started or finish work on the computer. After a while of ignoring that feeling, it's quickly getting worse and worse. Not only are you uncomfortable physically, but now you're starting experiencing the mood change. A mixture of being tired, tense, irritated and foggy, not able to focus or relax. This feeling is like a black hole, slowly sucking in any positivity, humor or joy. It's like an itch that cannot be scratched. And the only way to escape it is to lay down and breathe through it, observing its black claws slowly letting go of your mind and body. However, even after it goes away, you're not back to normal immediately. If you had to endure that feeling long enough, it leaves you as an empty husk needing more time to rest and recover. Because there were negative consequences to going out and being active, I limited it to the necessary minimum. When I move, I get back pain, but when I don't move, I get depressed. This vicious cycle took a heavy toll on me as a person. I became unmotivated to do anything productive. My creativity and curiosity were basically gone. Working out was a foundation that kept me balanced, so once it was gone, everything collapsed into purposeless disorder. Trying to fix my body was the only thing that gave me hope for a better future, so that was the only routine I kept following religiously. This helped me from going mad. As my learning process progressed, so did my understanding of what has happened to me. Since I've started working out, I was pursuing strength without really understanding what it is. I've played a lot of video games when I was younger, so when it came to training, that's how I imagined progress looks like. You go to the gym, you work out, you gain experience, you level up, and you get points. If you're training towards getting stronger, that means you're putting your points into strength. The more points you collect, the stronger you are. Simple. But as I came to learn, that's not quite how the human body works. The way I see it now, strength is the ability to counteract gravity. Whether it's our own body or an external weight, everything with mass is being pulled down to the ground by this force. So to keep this mass from falling down, we need to create an opposing force that's directed upwards. You know how we say that our body is mostly water? Muscles, blood, guts, and organs are all different forms of that water and are contained in bags made out of fascia, similar to this balloon filled with water. The water inside the balloon wants to fall flat to the ground, but the internal forces of the rubber push back on it, compressing it into this shape. If we increase this compression by adding more rubber bands, we can move this water up and change the shape of the balloon to be taller. Increase the internal pressure enough and you can move external weight. This is similar to how we move, and the ability to compress our internal structures to create that movement can be called strength. I know the difference between us and the water balloon is that we have bones inside. However, it is not the bones alone that keep us upright and give the body stiffness. What happens when you do strength training is that you're learning how to effectively compress specific parts of your body to create higher internal pressure, which allows you to lift more weight. As a secondary effect, there is also an adaptation of tissues happening. They get thicker and stronger and let you create even more pressure without risking structural failure. These compressing strategies are necessary to lift heavy weight, but they don't come for free. To achieve high force production, you need to limit movement in specific body parts, especially the thorax. That's why breathing is very limited or even stops completely when you need to produce a lot of force. Unrestricted breathing involves a lot of movement between the ribs, spine, and even pelvis. But if you want to move significant weight, all that movement needs to be suppressed to create a stiff structure capable of transferring that force into the ground. The problem arises when you cannot let go of these strategies after you've finished your high force demanding activity. In this scenario, your body has less mobility, but you still need to be able to breathe and move. So it will come up with a way to achieve that by finding compensatory strategies. These strategies make it possible to keep moving with all the movement limiting compression, but there's a price to be paid. When you're moving without sufficient joint mobility or improper mechanics, the body cannot distribute the associated forces evenly and efficiently. Some tissues will have to overcompensate for others, and this is where the pain comes in. Compensatory movement puts extra pressure on tissues that are not designed to take it in the long term. They are capable of tolerating these forces to some extent, but eventually it leads to the feeling of pain, stiffness, or discomfort. And if these sensations are ignored long enough, then you're looking at joint degradation and injuries happening in seemingly low-risk situations. Of course, I'm not trying to discourage anyone from strength training here. All I want is to share my experience of how unchecked strength training can have negative consequences. Coming back to my video game analogy from before, I think strength shouldn't be looked as a statistic that you can put points into, but rather a slider that can be moved left and right with training. On one side we have strength, and on the other something like movement efficiency or capability. If you move too much in one direction, you take away from the other. However, it's also possible to grow this bar in both directions, and that should be the goal for most people, trying to get stronger without sacrificing movement capabilities. My mistake was chasing bigger and bigger numbers in the gym and not having some movement-based performance indicator. My main goal was to get stronger, which to me meant more weight and more reps. I was hyper-focused on that pursuit, and I didn't really do much else physically other than going to the gym. Because of that, I didn't notice the growing amount of movement-limiting compression I had been acquiring before it was really bad. At that point, I thought at least part of my problem was the lack of flexibility, so I modified my training to add more exercises that put my body into those deep stretch positions. However, this approach didn't really work either. Reinforcing compression strategies and reducing them are opposite mechanisms. That's why they need different training methodology. My mistake was trying to fix my too much compression problem with training that's supposed to increase it even more, so naturally it didn't work long term. The issue was that even when doing those mobility-oriented exercises, I was still teaching my central nervous system to ramp up and compress more and more, trying to squeeze myself into those deep stretch positions. The actual solution required a complete paradigm shift in my training. Instead of pushing, compressing, forcing and squeezing, I needed to learn how to let go, relax and wind down my central nervous system activity. And the exercises that achieve that have to be performed with a completely opposite approach to what I was used to. Instead of trying hard and sweating, it's all about learning how to move with the least possible effort. Moving slowly, efficiently and quietly while focusing on breathing is the whole point. And let me tell you, these are some of the most boring and unrewarding exercises I have ever done. Stuff like rolling on the ground, reaching with arms and legs, or pushing into the floor or wall are the bread and butter here. But don't push too hard because you'll ruin the exercise. Do it without trying to do it or feeling like you're doing it. Okay. Unfortunately, these were the exercises that gave me the most relief and long-lasting results, all while slowly killing my spirit. These exercises are all about introducing subtle movements between segments of the body that should naturally occur during all types of propulsion, or put simply, moving. Without that ability, even those small forces associated with everyday life activities are not evenly distributed, which eventually leads to problems. Of course, we're all different, and some people will have a much higher capacity to tolerate these compression strategies than others. It took me only a couple of years to run into problems, while others can powerlift for 30 years before noticing any side effects of strength training. But generally speaking, there is a constant fight between movement efficiency on one side and maximizing force production by limiting movement on the other. And with like so many things in life, balancing between these two extremes is key to long-term health and performance. If you've never experienced any problems similar to what I'm describing here, you might be thinking that it's all a bunch of nonsense and I'm just overthinking this topic. But since going into my 30s, I started noticing people my age all around me having issues with pain and injuries. And in most cases, it's not because of lack of working out, but because of doing it. A lot of people seem to be in a good shape on the surface, but when you start asking, almost everyone has some sort of a back, shoulder, elbow, knee or hip issue. This observation leads me to believe that there is something fundamentally wrong with how we think about fitness nowadays. I want to dig deeper into this topic and I invite you to join me on this journey.